Hey there everyone, this is Mark now, and I'm currently dreading the collapse of the banking system in 2008 and its consequences. In this tutorial, I'm going to be playing Italy and introducing you to Making History, the Second World War. As I'm playing the Italian government in 1936 under Benito Mussolini, it's going to be a little bit hard to actually set myself up for long-term success without invading Yugoslavia entirely, conquering Greece, Albania, all that stuff. And because we don't have a Germany player, my economy, as you can see in the top part of the screen, is going to be in utter shambles. So let's get into it. First, I'm going to introduce you to the UI and show you how to change the angles of your map so you can see how well you paint. So, first and foremost, changing the angles uses the Q to go down and E to go up buttons. This is the terrain map mode, you know, like any good Paradox grand strategy game. We have our own little deal here. And then, the political map, which is just all of the countries and or puppets with their own individual colors. And then we have the empire maps. I find the empire political map to be the most effective for knowing what's going on, but the empire helps for understanding what's going on in your own country, and if you click on, let's say, the Soviet Union, you can see that these two areas over here, the People's Republic of Mongolia and the Xinjiang Click, are both under the Soviet Union as puppet states. In Germany, you'll also have the Rhineland as a puppet state as the start, just for game mechanic reasons. France, as you can see, has quite a large empire spanning the entire globe, as well as the United Kingdom, and the United States definitely has a few areas as well. And then we have our demographic maps. Now these are a little bit more complicated, and I'm not going to go into anything too in-depth here, but just to give you an idea of the intensity of this game and how much it wants to care about this sort of thing. As you can see, Alsace-Lorraine is German, same with the Sudetenland, but what's this? These guys, Bavarians. And all of these nationalities, from them you can create tags. So, yeah. Cultures. The nationality, culture, ethnicity, and religion all impact your country's stability when you have multiple inside your country. If I go to the Soviet Union and I look at their government support from their demographics, you can see that they have negative 5% stability because of it, for a total of negative 16 with all the other modifiers. In Italy, we're at negative 2%, but we have plus 16% demographics. We do have some minor interlopers in Trieste, Istria, some Croatians, and then we also have some Ethiopians occupied by us down here at the start of the game. And then you have civilization, which doesn't matter so much for gameplay reasons, but helps with the decals of building styles. As you can see, this is just a little different from one another when you go from Western Europe to Eastern Europe. And then when you go to the Middle East, it's not so different, but it all impacts certain things. If we go to this map right here, we can see region revolt risk, unrest, and national stability. Unrest is not a big deal at the start of the game. I believe next turn it's gonna show what's actually going on, but no place is actually rioting right now or going into full-on rebellion. But these are just the risks for places that are going to have some, i.e. Germany, due to the Weimar Republic's terrible economic policies, is currently not doing so well. France and Spain, you know, Spain's about to have the Spanish Civil War, and France isn't a fan of everything that happened during World War I, and they're stressed out by Germany right now. And then overall national stability, you can see in Italy we're pretty safe, but the Soviet Union's not doing too hot, and same with France. And then especially all these colonies. Diplomatic relations, you can see the relations of any country you click on. As you can see, Germany's strained with France, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Austria, and Denmark. I'm strained with Yugoslavia due to the invasions in the 1920s and 1930s, and then Greece due to me claiming the Dodecanese Islands and the Greek people wanting to unify all of their people, strong nationalist influences. And then you can see who you're actively at war with. And right now, I'm actively at war with Ethiopia. And you can also see your military access. Port access is something that you can gain from any country by going over here. And I need a minimum amount of relation to do that, but as you can see now, I can land in any British Empire-controlled port, from India to Brunei to Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Guyana, and Belize. And then we have our defensive infrastructure maps. These ones are a bit more fun for learning where you should naval invade, because at the start of the game, there's a good amount of coastal defenses around here and around here, but also over in Japan and the United States, we also have some large numbers of coastal guns, which will obliterate any surface ships that you have, including transport ships. Then we also have air defense, which I don't believe is built up anywhere particularly right now, except for, in Massachusetts and North Carolina. And then trench works. In Europe, they got rid of all of them, I guess, but in China, we have our Chinese Civil War raging and the warlord period, so of course they have to have some trenches in the communist-owned parts of China. And this is our resource map. These are pretty practical, but most of the time you can just go to the macro builder, which I'll show you guys in a little bit, and you'll see it's actually, you don't really have to look at all this. Plus there's also little icons on the map, where you can see there's a coal mine, and then there's also a metals mine right there in Bosnia. And then terrain type is pretty important for understanding which areas you can invade with tanks or mountaineers or certain types of units. As you can see, the Alps aren't that large, but they still cover a good portion. And then, all the mountains in Scandinavia, the Zagros mountain ranges, and the Himalayas in general, the Ural mountain range. And then you can see your supply maps. This one I find to be very practical, especially if you're playing the Soviet Union and or Japan trying to unify China. Building up the economy with railways and getting proper transportation is super, super important. As you can see in China, there's a lot of places that don't even have unpaved roads. And all of these railways increase the number of factories that you have in cities, and I'll get more to that in a little bit, but in the Soviet Union as well, you have plenty of infrastructure problems, especially towards Siberia more. But, you just gotta expand. And then, food production. Food production is the most important part of the game. We'll get into that very shortly. And here's your trade maps. Currently I'm trading with the UK, I'm importing stuff from them, and I'm importing stuff from the United States. I'm not going to stop because I'm assuming it's coal. You can check in the trade tab over here, but we'll do that later. And then trade access is also very important. It'll allow you to trade over land with people for the cost of only a single rail capacity instead of a lot of shipping capacity. And then finally, we have our scoring maps. I like to go for power status, ideology, and alliance. As you can see, the Germans are in the German alliance, the British are in the British alliance. They're not called the Allies or anything, and the strongest country just takes control of the alliance itself, but it's pretty independent. You have the Chinese United Front to an extent with the Kuomintang leaders in Guangxi and Shantung, and of course, the actual Republic of China. And then you have the Japanese co-prosperity spirit. So, now that we've done that and looked at the map modes, time to get into our government screen. Now this screen is extremely important and doesn't feel super complicated, but there is a good amount of information here. The taxation level dictates how much corruption you get, along with a few other things such as receiving money from other countries, and or giving money to other countries, and or trying to fund rebellions in other countries. So currently, because of our demographic support, I'm going to turn this up to 60 to hopefully balance out my economy just a little bit better. The education funding, I like to turn all the way up. Social welfare programs, I like to turn all the way up. This dictates how fast you research things. And then social welfare programs dictates how fast your population grows. And in a game about World War II, where you produce lots of soldiers, you can imagine that having a population to do so is pretty important. But the population is also used for building factories. Certain levels of factories can take 30 population points away from your nationality group. Propaganda will decrease your war wariness, and it also helps people be more fascist. And as the Italians, we really like that. Support religion is also pretty important. Over here you can see that my population support is 44%, and my governing ideology bonus is 20%. So why is it at 44%? Is the AI just trying to spend more money? No. The governing ideology bonus doesn't really help. As you can see, we're already at 4%. What we should do is we should turn this up to probably around 50, just to keep it safe and make sure that anybody who wants a theology is kept down, because we don't want to bring back the monarchy. And so going into the radicalism, this is analyzing your entire population, not just your key nationality, i.e. Italian for Italy. So, my population support for democracy is 21%. Now that I'm funding 100%, they will be totally fine. Socialism is at 13%. I am funding socialism at 100%, so I'm going to be totally fine. Nationalism, I have that pretty high. Governing ideology bonus, because it's far over the population support, it's fine. I have seen that as long as it's 20% over the population support, it's okay. The game likes to lie to you about those numbers a little bit. It's a little bit confusing. But we went over the theology thing, we're all good there. And now, government support. Currently we have a lot of war weariness. Propaganda is going to reduce that significantly. Demographics are all good. Because we have some money saved up in the bank, 30,000 generic units of gold, to be precise. And then we have 10% corruption, so I'm going to turn up purge corruption to a minimum of 22%. That way, and even though my economy is so negative, getting this negative 10% from corruption is really gnarly, and corruption will continue to increase. The taxes are a little intense on my people, sure, at 60%, but it's just what you gotta do. And now, we can go to our little research screen here. But, to give you guys a better idea of what the researches are, there is this research tab. Think about the Civilization games. It's relatively similar. Getting certain researches like Infantry Weapons 3 is really important at the start of the game, and as you can see, the Motored Boats is 15 research points, and Defense Industries is 50 research points. So, which one's going to take longer? It's going to be the Defense Industries, due to the fact that it just has more. I'll be researching this. I'm not going to complete it, of course, because I'm only going to do about 2 turns. But there we go. We got a research going. We're happy. We're satisfied. And now, we get to go to our infrastructure screen. I'm not going to go into cities yet due to the complex nature of what's all in there, but this is our raw resource screen. So, in Tuscany, we have 8 output, which is giving us 8 coal per turn, and as you can see, we're pretty damn negative. And we're also trading with the United States and Britain for more coal, and we still aren't making it even remotely close. So what we're going to do is we're going to expand output. That is going to take away manpower units. This is the number of manpower units that's in that province particularly. It will grab your manpower units from everywhere that is related to that nationality, if we went back to the nationality map mode right here. So Tuscany is in the Italian place, right? But Agame could only grab from Ethiopians. And the same way that, theoretically, if there was resources in Ogaden, they could only grab from the Somali nationality. Lazio Umbria is also Italian. Tuscany, Italian once again. Agame will have to prospect. Prospect will give us more reserves, and eventually when we build the proper infrastructure there, you need low rail to start producing things. So we'll get low rail eventually in East Africa. It's a large task, but, you know. And then in Sardinia, we'll also expand. We'll also expand. We'll also expand. However, usually, I prefer to wait until there's at least 5 reserves in a place before I decide to expand, due to the fact that it takes 5 turns for every expansion to occur. The higher rail density you have, the more reserves it'll take out per those 5 turns. But if it's just low rail density, it's 1 every 5 turns. So, right now in Sardinia, for example, I'm going to get 1 coal and 1 metals per every 5 turns, so I'll just wait until they both have 5 reserves total, or each, and then I'll do it. Infrastructure. The infrastructure screen is where you can build a lot of your defensive infrastructures like trench works and fortresses and coastal guns, air bases, all that. But most importantly is rail density and food farms. Farms are going to help you replace your population. You know, like think all of human history in relation to specialized economies and everything, and how they had a particular basis based off the fact that people were producing food and other people were doing other things. So let's get specialized. We are currently producing fuel and steel and all that stuff, but this is just to give you an idea of how to produce things. As you can see, if you highlight over them with your mouse, you can see the cost. So it's going to cost 600 gold over the course of 30 turns. So that means 30 gold per turn. And because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you can do the math on that, but I think it's 210 per turn. Building low rail density in places like the Dodecanese doesn't make any sense. They don't have any resources, but more importantly, they're a little island. They're not connected to anything. If they had resources like, let's say, the Soviet Union's North Sakhalin and South Sakhalin / Karafuto owned by the Japanese, building up roads and railway here to get these resources, oil, coal, and more coal, is very helpful. But that's not the case for Italy, because we're terrible. So, I'll build those farms, I'll build some unpaved roads in order to get basic supply access in my islands / in the areas that I own in Ethiopia / Abyssinia. And then I'll build a few air defenses over here for later in the game so that I can defend against enemy bombers, like from the French, British, and Americans. And possibly the Soviets if they push that far, but I won't be playing that long anyways. And now we go to our factory screen. This is where we manage our production of manufactured goods. As you can see on the top of the UI, we have all of our raw resources, including gold, on the right side. We have all of our manufactured goods, including transport capacities, on the left side. I'll get to transport capacities in just a second, but I want to go over all this first. So, in Milan, we have an airplane factory. It's a level 2. So, Currently, it is consuming 10 coal, 10 metals, 10 steel, and 10 fuel per turn to produce 150 gold, 90 taxes, and that's the output rate. I don't want to produce aircraft parts. Early game, the best thing to go for almost every single country in relation to airplanes is heavy bombers. Now that is consuming a lot less of our minuscule amount of resources, which is great. It'll take 12 turns to complete, but then we'll get some heavy bombers and bingo bango, we'll be able to bomb the hell out of England. Rome and Palermo both have artillery factories. They are both also set on the monetary form of production. However, producing anti-aircraft guns is probably what we want to go for. Florence, Bologna, Rome, Naples, Milan, all that, are all currently producing textiles and or arms. There's another option here, consumer goods, but consumer goods is highly expensive for the amount that it puts out compared to textiles. The resource consumption there doesn't make much sense to me, so I've never chosen consumer goods, and I don't recommend that you do, but here we are. So, I'm going to produce some more arms, but as you can see, those are a bit expensive, so I'm going to produce textiles in all the places that are less costly, and I'm going to produce arms in the lower version of the factory, so that way I'm still getting my arms, but I'm also getting some more money, which I will be lacking soon enough. These are the distilleries / fuel factories. Petrochemicals produces money for you. Kerosene produces less money for you, and kerosene is pretty useless. Petrochemicals is just a further thing down on the tech tree. Synthetic fuel will use coal entirely instead of trying to use oil and coal, which we do have not so much oil, but it may be a better idea for Italy to produce synthetic fuel, especially in a multiplayer game where you have a Germany. Saving up that oil so that you can then switch to fuel production, just regular fuel production, during wartime may make more sense. But, as you can see, all different forms of production. And then we have our dockyards. These are very exciting because you can produce money, like any good factory, or you can produce ships. And there are so many different options, as you can see. Starting off early, as the Italians, you probably want to go for destroyer 1s and battleships. And we're already building 2 standard battleships, but we're building 1 here and 1 here. In Trieste, that level 3 industrial shipyard is going to produce that battleship a bit faster than the level 1 dockyard we have in Genoa. So, I'm going to turn both of these into shipping capacity in order to increase my ability to trade, and I'm going to turn both of these into standard battleships, so they produce a little bit faster, and we're making stuff happen. As you can see, the taxes do increase for the level of factory as well. And then we get to the absolutely most important factory that you will ever have, the steel mill. So these are all level 2, but as you can see, we're producing lots of steel, and we definitely need that. But producing rail capacity is the only way to actively make more infrastructure possible for yourself. By building more rail in a region, going here, and going, I'd like medium rail density here. I haven't researched the tech for high rail density, so. But in Calabria, oh, well, that's probably not a good place to do it. There we go. Wait, no. I'm just going to override one of these farms. So, in March, in Ancona currently only has 2 factories, a steel mill and a distillery. Now that I'm building medium rail density, when that is done in 20 turns, and it is consuming 2 rail capacity per turn, along with some steel, some coal, I will have 3 factories available here, which is going to significantly change the game for me, being able to produce more and more and more. A good strat for Italy at the start is usually destroying this distillery and building up dockyards in these 3 provinces all along the Adriatic Sea in order to concentrate all in this one area, the Gulf of Venice. So that way the Allies have less access to your navy production. Of course, building up Genoa is also not a bad idea, but you can also build another steel mill there or other stuff. But just giving you an idea of how you might want to play the game. Going back to the city screen, we're still producing enough steel to be all safe, and we're producing some rail capacity, and we're having a good time. Rail capacity can also be used, however. Same with road capacity, shipping capacity, and airlift capacity. If I grab these infantry units and I split them apart, so now that I have 10 guys in this little army, and we have an airbase here, and I have 12 airlift capacity, I can move these individuals by airlift. And that will cost a bit of fuel, but it'll be far more quicker to transport them like that than to try to use railroads or anything else. Using shipping capacity, I can put guys on the water. It'll decrease one of my shipping capacity. As you can see, it's in use currently, if I highlight over that. But you can load anything into the water, even airplanes. Put anything on boats and get them to wherever you want to go. And boats do move pretty gosh darn quick, so it's also pretty helpful. But going back to the city screen, there's one more production thing that I want to go over, and that's the automobile factory. Road capacity is very helpful for deserts. Playing as the Italians fighting in Africa, you're going to need this. Playing as the Soviet Union fighting in China, you'll need this. Playing as the Chinese or Japanese fighting in China, you'll need this. I think you get the idea. But you can also build tanks. Tanks are great. Tanks are fantastic. They don't take manpower units, unlike all of your infantry units, which makes things very nice for a country like, let's say, Scandinavia, any of the Scandinavian countries, or when you're low on manpower in general. It's pretty effective to do so. Now, we get to the recruitment screen. If I go here to this province, or rather, sorry, if I go to a city that has a military academy, and we see the amount of MPUs that Italy has, we have 390 MPUs to use from the Italian nationality group. If I do the same thing for, well, Trieste doesn't have a military infrastructure. Come on. There we go. In Yugoslavia, we have 50 Serbians coming from Herzegovina, Morava, Vojvodina, and Podrinje. So, same can be, Bulgarians, Romanians, plenty of Germans, plenty of Soviets, and plenty of Japanese and Chinese. And that gives you an idea of how to limit your production in relation to how much you're producing, soldier-wise, but also managing your mining and resource economy with your military production. So I'll just produce infantry 2s everywhere, and then some Marines. Marines, playing as the Italians, are very, very effective. So yeah, you can see the Marines take a little bit longer. They all have different, specializations. I'm not going to get into all that right now, but you get the idea. Going to the city list. This is where we build our factories, but you can also build research facilities, more military infrastructure buildings like recruitment facilities, food production stuff. The energy producers actually just produce money for you, and they're basically free. It's a little interesting, but due to the fact that, building up all these factories and getting them to higher levels may be more effective for you, blah, blah, blah. Building healthcare buildings increases your population growth a little bit. So, as the Italians, because our MPUs are so low generally, we have about 300-ish, I will build some hospitals. And everywhere except Trieste. Trieste, I'll build a training camp. so I can recruit some Croatians, and later on when I invade Yugoslavia, I'll be able to get the rest of the Croatians to come along with me. Because currently, I believe we only have 9 here. But I think that goes over the city's pretty alright, you get the idea. Now, we're going to go over the military. So, the interesting thing about the military is that there is a combat capacity, basically, of 20. And that is a very key detail due to the fact that you can only march 20 guys into a province effectively, otherwise, a bunch of your units will start taking damage for no reason. Especially if they're being bombarded like my men over here in Eritrea versus these Ethiopian artillery guns. So, I'll grab my artillery, reposition it so I can get a better idea of where they're firing. Bombard the units and defenses. I don't want to bombard their artillery because you can actually capture enemy artillery in this game. So, I'll be bombarding them, and then I'll merge the stacks over here. I'll split off the militia because, well, they're just not so good at fighting. And then I'll also take off the mounted infantry because they're also not so good at fighting in the mountainous terrain. They will receive significant debuffs. They're already receiving debuffs from the hills, I believe. Oh no, they don't. That's good news. But I'll move all these guys in, and they should do great. Only 9 guys. We have an offensive combat power of 69%. Nice. And they have a defensive combat power of 41. Because they're militia in the mountains, they receive a huge bonus. But I think we'll be able to stop them with a little bit of aerial shenanigans over here. I'm going to split off these early and light bombers, and then split off the fighter 1s. And so these early fighters only have a mission range of 2. I'll strafe these enemy units. I'll bomb these guys. And then I'll strafe these guys. Now, planes, as you saw, they have different options. These are bombers. Their airstrike power combined is 352, but their bombing power is 160, and their strafe power is 140, or 104. So, choosing bombing power goes a lot better for me. I'm going to bomb the enemy units. As I said, I don't want to destroy their artillery, I'd rather capture it. I'll move these guys, except for the militia, into there. And then over here, I will march these guys into Wellow as well. Now, I'll just do a little bit of a northern campaign, but I do want to show you one more thing before I end the turn. Or 2 more things, actually. So, currently, this army is owned by Italian East Africa, and is of the Somali manpower. However, if I go here on the star and I click command, now, because they are my puppet state or colony or whatever, I'm able to control them. And then I can theoretically give them to whomever I want, but I can give them back to Italian East Africa, of course. I'm going to keep them because otherwise the AI is going to try and march them into... There we go. See, they're trying to march militia all the way over here, which doesn't make a lot of sense for me, because if the militia gets into combat, they'll just be worse at fighting than the other units I have. And finally, we're going to go over all of this, which isn't that complicated. The global reports just talk about what's going on politically across the world. The government screen is going to show you what you're researching, how your radicalism is doing, i.e. the revolt risks in your country, your military readiness and combat penalties, your manpower gain and loss, what wars you're actively in, and your world ranking. Diplomatic is going to show the political thing as well. You can change this with this bottom thing down here, what you want to see. I have mine seen as a little different, of course, than the base game, which it has all the options, which is pretty crazy. Combat reports are going to report combat from all across the globe. Engagements are going to show you active battles, and we'll see some very shortly pop up here. And then trade offers. Trade offers are extremely important for a country like Italy at the start of the game. If I was to go here to the trade screen, and then I go to World Market, and I see what people are offering. I'm losing food, but nobody's going to be able to give me food at the start of the game. Everyone's pretty negative, except for the United States of America. If I go to coal, we have the Rhineland Demilitarized Zone. I will establish diplomatic relations with them, and I already have some trade access, but I'll get it through France as well to trade with more countries. So we'll go back to the screen, make an offer every turn, and the shipment responsibility will be mine. As I said, because I have trade access now through France / Austria and Germany to go to the Rhineland, I only need 1 transport capacity, which is a lot better for me instead of using all my ships and all my road capacity. So we'll make this offer. Bingo bango. Now we're not so negative on coal. We'll go to metals. Rhineland Demilitarized Zone. Great deal. They're just a great friend to us right now. So now we're not doing so bad on all this. As you can see, all those attacks are using arms. If I had tanks in movement or combat, they would be using fuel. To repair units like artillery and or tanks and or planes, you'll use steel once they're based, i.e. when they're chilling in the airbase or chilling in a province. As long as they have supply, they will be getting repaired. Our units are all on reinforce on because our military at the start is at general mobilization. We could upgrade our units, of course, but I do not want to due to the fact that it does take away from the health of those units. I'll get more into that in just a sec. So, let's go to turn 2. Germany changed, blah blah blah. They're trying to offer me a peace treaty, of course not. So, now we haven't won instantly, which is what I was expecting. However, we're doing quite well. Now, the green bar is for whomever the attacker is. The attacker is always on the left side, and the red bar is for the person on the right side, who's the defender. The Battle of Begemder, no casualties yet, but they are at 26% health. We can look at their individual units like this. So this one militia's at 6%, this one militia's at 50%, so it'll probably take 2 more turns unless they bring in some reinforcements. And our units are doing pretty alright, generally speaking. Yeah, look, that one Marine isn't even damaged at all. Great stuff. Hopefully he fought. And you can get the same idea for the Battle of Wellow. We killed 3 of their cavalry units, but they have a remaining 2 infantry units. And these are real infantry guys, so they might be able to fight a little bit longer, which will be regrettable for us, but that's the way it goes. We'll move our cavalry over there, and because we don't have any roads, they will move a little bit slower, but if we had some roads, they would actually move 2 in 1 turn. They might, it depends on the terrain modifiers as well as the local infrastructure. But if we had listed a trade offer and asked people the same way that all these AI are asking for things, we would have gotten some offers in this screen right here. Over here we can see what all the other countries are doing, but more importantly we can see how our infrastructure projects are doing here. Every turn I like to check this screen because of the fact that it'll show you when all of your stuff is going to be done. And instead of going through the macro builder or going through the micro builder, just clicking on the provinces individually, you can click here and it'll say completed, and you can just click there, and then you can get it done from that screen individually. So it's like a micro-macro combination right there. It's one of my favorite parts of the effectiveness of this screen. Same with the recruitment order screen, where you can see that our light tanks are being produced in Cagliari, which is on Sardinia, which is a little funny to have a factory there, but whatever. I'd usually destroy this and start building dockworks and or dockyards and or economic buildings like steel mills. But you see that things are progressing. Once they're done, you can move them all to wherever, or if I go to Rome and I go here, you can go to a transit order you can have them move. You can also do this from the macro builder, right here, transit order. Say I want to move this guy to Campania, I want to move this guy to Campania, I want to move this guy to Campania. Now, they're all pretty far from Campania, because Campania is down over here, and Bologna is right there, and Florence is right there, and Genoa is all right there. So they'll move all on our rail capacity in 4 turns and go down to Campania, and we'll get an army group down there ready to go. In the Soviet Union, it's a good idea to move everyone down to Azov and make sure that you're not having guys in Stalingrad and in Rostov-on-Don and in Novorossiysk. Slavic names, terrible, but all moving to Azov, and that way they'll have a better time. You can organize things pretty effectively that way, and you can get the game streamlined. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate it. Remember, I'm Macno, and I'm here to bring back this dead game. I don't even know if it was ever alive, really, but whatever, sort of Frankenstein's monster. Hopefully people like this game and hopefully want to see more of it. So, yeah. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.